Welcome to the W2W review. I am the Oakland Knight, and joining me as always from his LA studios is Raider Pirate. What's going on, Pirate?
What's going on, Raider Nation?
All right, Raider Nation, we're going to change things up a bit today. We're going to be discussing and overviewing and critiquing, if you will, Shannon, Sharpe, and Skip Bayliss from Undisputed. They had a lot to say about our Raiders defense, so without further ado, Pirate, what do you got as far as Undisputed goes?
Yeah, we were watching, and once again, I think a lot of people, sort of don't have an idea of what it is that we're trying to do, kind of as a broadcast on this daily show. We're trying to bring sort of a fresh perspective of what other people have been writing, and some of the things that we see on TV, as well as the press conferences and things of that nature. So Shannon, Sharpe, and Skip Bayless had an episode, the 921 episode. You can go back and look it up on YouTube, where Ray Lewis was there, and he talked about the defense not communicating. And he brought up that, Shannon Sharpe brought up the fact that Khalil Mack only had one move, that the league had figured him out. He only had the power move where he punches out and pushes you into the quarterback. And I just thought that was so funny. I mean, he's not taking into consideration that, basically if Khalil Mack goes inside, he's got the tackle and the guard. If he goes outside, he's got the tackle and the tight end, or maybe a fullback or a halfback blocking him out. He's not getting any pressure from the middle of the field, and maybe all of those things may have something to do with what's going on. Now that they've got Autry in the middle, he's creating that pressure. And guess what? Oh, look, now Khalil Mack is starting to generate pressure from the outside, and so is Bruce Irvin. But the point that I wanted to make was that he said that he only had the one move, the punch move. If you watch this game, once again, he had the spin move, the curl move, the rip move, the up and under. I mean, he displayed so many different moves in this game while being double teamed, sometimes triple teamed throughout this game, and he was still getting pressure because the Ravens held on to the ball a little bit. So I just wanted to bring that up before we take a look at what they have to say in yesterday's show.
Okay. Yeah. This is where I think that some of these shows on ESPN gets watered down. It's something that just, you got a guy like Shannon Sharpe on a show who's an ex-Raven, an ex-Bronco. Of course, he's not going to give any Raider love. And if you're going to take a dominant player like Khalil Mack, you got a guy that is probably the most dominating figure on our defense, regardless of his production. I mean, they wouldn't be sending double teams and triple teams his way if he wasn't our dominant player. So now all the talk about, is he like Von Miller? Is he better than Von Miller? What is the story with Khalil Mack? Of course, you're going to get a guy like Shannon Sharpe to try to up his ratings, and he's going to try to attack Khalil Mack. And just like anybody that does any type of social media or any type of TV-style media or even writing, they're going to draw attention to themselves, and Shannon Sharpe is decided to pick on Khalil Mack. So, I'm all game for it. Let's go. I mean, let's see exactly what this guy has to say.
Yeah, and he brought up a couple of other points, too. He brought up the fact that the secondary could run, but they couldn't turn. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do that. And Skip Bayless made the point, you know what, maybe it's time to send some kids in there and see what the babies can do. People have talked about it not being a personnel issue. It was obviously a personnel issue. The personnel that they had in there the first 2 weeks is drastically different from the personnel they have in there now. It's a coaching issue. It's a personnel issue. There were a lot of things that were changed. It's a philosophical issue. I mean, they went away from just trying to, play the same type of defense. So there were a lot of different things that went on. But again, I just found it funny that he wanted to sit there and single out Khalil Mack. On a team where you could point the finger in a lot of different directions, but he wanted to point the finger and say, that guy's not as good as Von Miller, right? So let's go ahead now and have a listen to what he had to say after the Raiders beat the Ravens.
Improved to 3-1 after a come-from-behind 28-27 win in Baltimore yesterday. Derek Carr threw 4 touchdown passes, including a game winner late in the fourth quarter to Michael Crabtree. Skip, you picked the Raiders to win the West at the beginning of the season. How confident are you in them now?
more confident than ever, and I stand by my prediction, especially after what I watched yesterday in Baltimore, a place where you played a lot of football games. The Ravens yesterday, let's check out the numbers. They rolled up 412 total yards. The visiting team had a mere 261, the Raiders. The Ravens controlled the clock, 35 minutes to 25 minutes for the Raiders. And they held the Raiders, did the Ravens, to 3 of 12 on third down. If I just read you those numbers at Baltimore, you'd tell me, no way.
Won easy.
Yeah, easily, right? And yet, Derek Carr, as Joy pointed out, made 4 money throws, 4 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions, 0 fumbles lost for the Raiders. So once again, they go on the road for the third time to move to 3-0 on the road. And this time, once again, they play a mistake-free football game. That's a significant step for a team that is finally learning how to win games in the National Football League. And they went to a place, Baltimore, where a veteran Ravens team had survived all 3 of its first games to move to 3-0 by winning those ugly, close games that they are so good at winning. And Joe Flacco had made the money plays in the first 3 games, and Justin Tucker had made the money kicks, especially the one that beat Jacksonville from 54 yards just the week before. And there he was, Justin Tucker, warming up on the sideline down the stretch as the game was on the line. And what happened? The Raiders' defense stepped up and made 4 straight money plays. I've had my doubts about the defense. I know you have. I'm going to give you the floor in just a second. But I will tell you that Joe Flacco had a pretty hot hand in this game. And it's 1st and 10 at the 50-yard line, and Justin Tucker needs, 15 more yards? Maybe 10.
He's probably good from about 54
okay.
in that stage.
All right, so there you go. So it's starting to feel like, here they go again. Here come the Ravens again. Incomplete, 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 incomplete. Broken up. Put some pressure. I saw Khalil Mack, and I've been critical of him. He started to pop off my TV screen in those last 4 plays. He can be unblockable even by 2 offensive linemen, and he was starting to wreak havoc yesterday. So my point is, they turned Joe Flacco, who can be a very clutch quarterback, back into the guy I call Joe Fluco in the end, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. I just thought it was on a silver platter for Baltimore to pull out the way they usually pull those games out, especially at home. So now I look at what's upcoming for the Oakland Raiders. They got San Diego and Kansas City at home, both winnable. Kansas City away from Arrowhead, as we saw last night. Not much. And then they go, do the Raiders, to Jacksonville and to Tampa.
They'll probably stay.
I would think they would stay, but I think you'd give me those are winnable games,
absolutely,
right? For this team on the road, especially 3-0 on the road. That leads to potentially 7-1 for the Oakland Raiders with your Denver Broncos coming to the black hole. Now, that'll be a game. We'll be talking about that game.
Absolutely.
But if the Raiders can hang in and hang on and continue to grow up as a football team, they should be able to close these 4 deals. 7-1 versus, who knows, maybe an undefeated Broncos team at that point. That would be an early game of the year, right?
Yep.
And it would be the first time Oakland has been really excited about something legit since 2002 when they went to the Super Bowl and got blown out by their ex-coach in his Tampa Bay Bucks. Your thoughts?
All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop it there. Now, Skip Bayless, again, he's been up and down. He's been up and down on the Raiders. The Raiders had some poor games. All of a sudden, oh, my God, these guys aren't going to be able to win, 4 games this season. They're going to be 4-12 again. This is horrible. The Raiders come back, and they get 2 games in a row in a very, solid fashion, which may not be defensively, but offensively and being able to go on the road, which is what you need to do in the playoffs. Let's understand this is what a team needs to do in the playoffs. They need to be able to win on the road, right? So once again, he starts talking now about, hey, if they just get past the Chargers and they get past the Chiefs. And I agree with most of the things that he's saying. Again, I don't think we can look past these particular football teams and say, hey, we're going to be 7-1 against an 8-0 Denver Bronco team, because I don't think the Denver Broncos are going to be 8-0. But, that's just my opinion, like it's his opinion. But so far in this, I'm kind of sitting there and I'm like, okay, I can agree with what you're saying. This is a young football team. Khalil Mack, starting to step up. They knew they had to stop him. But again, what is the difference? Khalil Mack is taking up the tackle and the guard. What does that do? It frees up a guy like Danico Autry to go one-on-one against the center. What is the center getting? A bunch of holding calls because he's creating pressure and havoc. That's negating big plays down the field. Now the defense, because you got guys that are running around and tackling, are able to make those plays in front of them, and all of a sudden you start seeing a football team that's a little bit different. Your thoughts on what Skip Bayless had to say, and then when we come back, obviously we're going to get into the meat of this, which is Shannon Sharpe statements.
Absolutely. When I look at what Skip Bayless said, I'll have to admit I agree with a lot of what he said too, except for all of a sudden he sees Khalil Mack jumping off his screen. Khalil Mack was jumping off the screen the whole game. I mean, this guy continued to get pressure, knockdowns. He had a hit on Joe Flacco that, Flacco was lucky to get up from. I mean, this guy was consistently getting into the backfield. And what you're going to start to see, if and only if Autry is the real answer in the middle of this defense right now, is exactly what the Raiders have been banking on since they brought in and revamped this defensive line. Look, when you got a guy like Khalil Mack with his skill level, his strength, his speed, his ability to, yes, rush the passer and create havoc, you have to understand this guy, that your first defense to a guy like Khalil Mack is to double or triple attack this guy. You have to slow him down. So that's what teams are doing. And if they've been doing it effectively, because the middle of our defensive line cannot generate the pressure. And Bruce Irvin, actually, he gets criticized too, but he's actually made quite a few plays this season.
Yeah.
He's doing, in my opinion, quite well. But if you're going to have a guy like Khalil Mack that's going to get that much attention, the rest of the defensive line must step up. In the first 3 weeks, they weren't doing that. In this Baltimore game, regardless if it was the Ravens offensive line or not, the rest of the defensive line showed up. And as long as that can continue, because that's what we saw last year, once Mario Edwards started generating a pass rush and a great run defense from the middle and getting penetration, then all of a sudden you force the offensive line to say, we can put all the attention on Khalil Mack all we want, but now we're singling up everybody else across the defensive line. So, Autry continues to step up. Bruce Irvin continues to step up. Ward, Latham, all these guys start generating pressure and doing their jobs and getting off their blocks and attacking the middle of this offensive line or the opposing offensive line. It's going to free Khalil Mack up. They can't put just the pressure on one guy if there's going to be another dominating force. If you look at Von Miller, he's got DeMarco Ware. Now he's got Shane Ray. Last year it was Malik Jackson. So it wasn't just the Von Miller show. Once they put all the attention onto Von Miller, it freed up guys like DeMarco Ware, who's dominating, a guy like Malik Jackson last year who was dominating, and they're expecting that kind of performance from Shane Ray. So it's not just Von Miller being able to take on these double teams and triple teams. It's the ability of the rest of the defensive line to respond. And once we start doing that, which we did last week, you see what Khalil Mack is going to do. We saw it last year, like I just got done saying. Once Mario Edwards Jr. started providing that pressure in the middle of the opposing offensive line, Khalil Mack was able to get to the quarterback quicker because they had to lighten up a little bit on the coverage of Khalil Mack because they had to stop Mario Edwards Jr. from getting the penetration. Now you got a guy like Bruce Irvin who could do the same thing. So this is the key to push Khalil Mack forward. Okay, one guy, 1 out of 11 people on the defensive field cannot win you football games. He cannot be the sack leader constantly. You got to have other people to be able to step up and handle business. That's my thoughts on that. Anyways, we're going to pick up this conversation when we get back from break and get into what Mr. Donkey, and trust me, I have an issue with Shannon Sharpe even before these statements, and we'll get into that as well when we get back from break. Stay tuned.
MMM Carpets is celebrating the holidays with a huge inventory clearance sale. We have the best prices and guaranteed installation. Why would you buy anywhere else? Whether you're looking for laminate, vinyl, carpet, tile, or wood, we have it all. Save up to 50% on selected items. Room size rugs, only $69. Visit MMM Carpets at one of our 6 Bay Area locations or call us at 1-800-355-4MMM.
All right, welcome back to the W2W Review. I'm the Oakland Knight, joined by the Raider Pirate, and today we're going over a a segment from the Undisputed where they were talking about the Raider defense. We just got done listening to what Skip Bayless had to say, and we gave our thoughts on what Skip Bayless had to say. Now we're going to get into the real brass tacks here of what Shannon Sharpe, a.k.a. Donkey Boy, had to say about Khalil Mack in this defense. Pirate, what you got?
Yeah, and again, we want to go back to the fact that, he's pointing out with Ray Lewis when the two Ravens are sitting there, these guys can't communicate, they're undisciplined, the league has figured out Khalil Mack, they were just so sure of what it is, and that's why I kind of can sympathize with people sometimes that tell us, hey man, these are just your opinions, they're this, they're that. Maybe we're wrong, maybe you can change personnel, maybe you can do this, and maybe you can do that, and we can see a different team begin to emerge. But again, he doesn't come back and say, hey, you know what, man, they're proving me wrong, they're doing this. He kind of dances around the subject and does, what, again, Shannon Sharpe does. So let's go ahead and take a listen to his thoughts.
Well, if you look at them offensively, they are top 10 offense. Derek Carr has 9 TDs, 1 INT. Their defense concerns me. I picked them to be a wild card team. I still believe they can be a wild card team. Skip, their last in total defense, their last in pass defense, and their second to last in rush defense. And the reason why Khalil Mack popped off your screen is because he knew the Ravens had to throw the football. Because, see, when you got to play both run and pass, you can't dig your heels in. You can't just go get the quarterback. He's like, here, they got to get in field goal range. I know they got to throw the football. They're not going to run it. So he was just doing what he does in rushing the quarterback. I agree with you, Skip. I think they could. You look at the Chargers, they've blown 2 fourth-quarter leads of at least 13 points. Kansas City would check down Alex Smith. I got no confidence in them. Jacksonville, they only win in London.
That was pretty impressive, actually. But go ahead.
Jameis Winston, he's turned into a turnover machine now. He's regressing a little bit.
You and I virtually put him in the Hall of Fame about 3 weeks ago.
Well, we definitely had him in the MVP conversation.
They won at Atlanta on opening Sunday.
Exactly.
Wow.
So you're right. I still do not believe they're going to win this division because I think the Broncos, with their defense, can beat them and can score enough points on their defense. But that's the only concern that I have is that their defense. I don't see how you can be last in every category on defense, and even if you do have a top 5 offense, because what we've seen, Carolina had the #1 scoring offense, and then one Sunday they couldn't score, and Carolina's defense gave up, a touchdown. Cam turned the ball over, and they got a touchdown, and they can only get 10 points. So what happens when Derek Carr doesn't throw 4 touchdowns? What happens when they can't score the 27 or the 28 points that they customarily score on a Sunday? Can the Raiders defense rise up for an entire game? We saw them rise up for one series, and that was the series that mattered. But I have my doubts moving forward. Can they do it, consistently? But I still believe there could be a 10-6 or 11-5 ball club.
And by the way, a guy you've been hard on.
Okay, so just in that statement alone,
right.
You take a look and he says the reason why you saw Khalil Mack pop off the screen because he knew that they were going to be throwing the ball. No, what we saw was that John Harbaugh understood if we're going to be successful, we have to protect the middle of this pocket. Right now, they're getting a ton of pressure because they're pushing on the middle of the pocket. He saw that both Bruce Irvin and Khalil Mack were coming all the way to the outsides. They were overrunning the plays in most cases and then coming back around and making the plays from behind. He needed a clean pocket if Joe Flacco was going to win this football game. And he realized that using a guard, to try to take somebody who's going all the way upfield was probably a misuse of that guard. He gambled and he lost on that series. But earlier on, they were still making a bunch of plays. And again, he says something. Did you even watch the game? They showed up on this series. Did you not see them show up when we were going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out? Did you not see them show up in the red zone? Did you not see them take away the 2-point conversion? Did you not see them showing up throughout that game? Did you not see them when the offense was struggling in the Tennessee game come up and keep Tennessee down? I mean, what is it that you have to see here week in? I'm not sure that these guys can do this on a consistent basis when this team cannot score. Well, the team can score. They can score against good defenses. They can score against bad defenses. But once again, it's kind of like his statement about Khalil Mack only having one move. Are you watching Khalil Mack? Are you watching this defense? They only showed up on one series? No, they showed up on a big series, the last series, and they showed up big. But once again, we had so many 3-and-outs. We were so horrible on third down. This defense showed up consistently all game long until they decided to go into a prevent defense where they had the wrong personnel in there. Heck, they were using a special teamer as one of their linebackers. And they still were able to, they gave up the points and Baltimore came back, but Baltimore is a second half team. This is an explosive football team. Your thoughts, partner?
Yeah. Well, here we go. All right. This is where it gets, I'm going to agree with Shannon Sharpe only on one part, but just like I always say, there's more to a story than just one. There's always two sides to a story, not one. So when he says, oh, they had success on that last drive because they knew they had to get into field goal range, they knew they were going to throw the football. Well, Shannon Sharpe, that's a no-brainer. That's why I always say when we talk about Bill Musgrave, I want him to be more aggressive and jump on teams so we can make them one-dimensional, because that will also help our pass rush. So I'll give you that, Shannon Sharpe. But the one thing that you're overlooking is a few different things here with this Raider defense. Number one, what I covered in the last segment, with what Skip Bayless had to say, is the penetration that Autry was getting in the middle. And you brought up a good point, Pirate. They wanted to create a safe pocket for him to step up into, and he wasn't getting that because Autry was actually pressing the pocket. As Latham,
and we were blitzing
exactly,
and we were blitzing through those holes that they were using to try to stop Mack
right.
with.
So that's the other side of the story. Even if they're going to run the football, or whether we know they're passing or not, we still got to generate pressure from the other 3 to 4 defensive linemen on the field to help Khalil Mack out, to get those double teams and triple teams off of him. And that's what we saw in this football game. So it's more than just knowing they're going to pass there, Donkey Boy. That's just the way that it is, okay? Now, another thing when he's talking about the defense in the whole, and he's talking about our secondary and this and that, look, it also helps, you have to have coverage sacks, but you also got to have, pressure to be able to break up passes and create interceptions. This team, what they're not talking about in this whole segment is the fact that, once again, you got guys like Latham, Calhoun, Ward, Corey James, and Carl Joseph, all integral parts of this defense at this moment. These are all really young players, and once again, we are only 4 games in. We just finished up wrapping up the first quarter of football. So the fact that we're able to be 3-1 at this point, regardless of how much our defense is struggling, and you talk about what happens when Carr has a bad game. Well, you know what happens when Carr has a bad game? When he throws for 199 yards but 4 touchdowns against the number 2 ranked defense at the time anyway, going into week 4, it shows that we could have an off day and still put up points. You could consider statistically Carr having an off day. He didn't throw for 300. He had the 4 touchdown passes. That was the number 2 ranked defense. We only rushed for 62 yards. So trust me, this offense is dynamic there, Shannon, okay? And this defense is growing week in and week out, and we're coming up on a stretch where we have time to make some noise. Pirate, your thoughts?
Yeah, and a couple other things that kind of stood out to me. Once again, he doesn't come in and say, you know what, man, maybe I was wrong. This team is growing. He comes in and he points out the only thing that he can, which is to go back and dive into, you can't be last in the league and this and that. Let's not forget, this was a historically bad first 2 weeks. We were trying a system. The system didn't work. If you look at the system they're running now, they're blitzing a lot more. It took them 2 weeks to figure out, hey, they're sending everybody over there to block Khalil Mack. Why don't we send some guys into the holes that they're creating? When they have a guard double up on Khalil Mack, why don't we send some blitzes through those particular holes? Why don't we create pressure in the middle of the field? Why don't we get some one-on-one center matchups and do some different types of stunts and blitzes? So now they're kind of figuring out. But you got to remember, if this is a historically bad defense, then it's going to take them more than 4 weeks to dig themselves out of the tunnel, out of the ditch that they put themselves in those first
Absolutely.
2 weeks. Now, again, they're still giving up. They're giving up a 100-yard rusher. They're giving up, 300 yards passing. They're still giving up too much. But let's not forget, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, and I'm sure Joe Flacco, these guys can all put up numbers against most football teams. So they're going to get theirs while we're learning and while we're growing. But he says something else. What happens when you can't do this? What happens? Oh, you saw Cam Newton. You saw the Carolina. We also saw the St. Louis Rams come up against a Tennessee Titan football team that had a much better defense. We saw them not be able to generate the type of offense, but they beat the Titans.
Right.
They beat the Titans and went on to the Super Bowl, So, yeah, you can bring up certain things, but you should also bring up the other side as well. You can't just sit there and say, hey, the offense, defense wins championships because, okay, Donkey Lips, listen, we're going to tell you this once and for all, right? On any given Sunday, the ball can bounce any way. This offense is extremely versatile. We can stretch the entire field. We can run the ball. We can pass the ball. We've got a quarterback that understands how to score. We're extremely efficient in the red zone. Yes, maybe we couldn't run the ball the way that we wanted to run the ball, but when we couldn't do that, we could pass the ball, and we got just enough defense to do what it was that we needed to do, which was beat the Ravens, who were undefeated in their house on Sunday. So when you start looking at all of these things together, just come on in and say, hey, you know what? I was wrong, man. I picked on Sean Smith. I picked on the Raiders. I picked on Khalil Mack. But you know what? Khalil Mack dominated today. Maybe not in the statistical category, but they tried to run the ball at him. The commentators were even saying, man, the way that you try to neutralize Khalil Mack is you try to run at him. They tried that. Didn't stop him. You got to move away from him. They tried that. Didn't stop him. You got to put a guard and a tackle on him, and then you got to block him with the tight end. Didn't stop him. And when it did stop him, it's now allowing penetration from the middle, from the outside, and our blitzes to come in and to be basically there's no one there to pick those guys up, and that's creating pressure. And again, like we talked about in the preseason, now you're seeing balls that are being thrown a little bit too early, and those balls have the potential of being what? Picked off, right? So now you start talking about generating those turnovers. And once this team starts generating turnovers, you can be a statistically, I hear people, oh, a W was all that. No. No, 4 W's in a season don't mean squat. I'm sorry. 4 W's in a season don't win you anything. They don't get you invited to even participate in winning anything. They're just 4 W's. A win is a win, blah, 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 blah. No, this football team, like he's saying, like you said, I do agree with the fact that they've got to do something defensively. They've got to get better. They also have to learn to start attacking and playing, going for the throat. If they can do those types of things, man, we're not going to be talking about what happens when Derek Carr can't score. We're just going to be scoring, and we're going to be scoring a lot, and the defense is going to be growing. And as that defense grows, we're just going to be that much better. So, those are my thoughts pretty much on that, partner.
Again, I want to bring up this fact. It's simple. Okay, historically bad defense. Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that, Shannon, all day long. But at the end of the day, you look at the first 2 games and the last 2 games when they actually changed the personnel and started blitzing more and started changing up their defensive front to generate the pressure. Even though statistically it's still really bad, we're seeing improvement. This defense is continuing to improve, and that should scare a lot of people. There's still a lot of story that needs to be written here, okay? We still got 12 games on the schedule. But if you continue to improve, I don't care how big the margin is, as long as you can continue to improve moving forward week in and week out with this defense. And like I said yesterday, we got potentially Mario Edwards will be back eventually. Hopefully they can get Aldon Smith clear to come back on the football team. We're just adding more depth, more personnel to this defense. It's going to get better. And like you said, what happens when Derek Carr has that game? I guarantee you Derek Carr and this offense is going to have one of those games where just nothing's going right for whatever reason, whether it's because we traveled to Tampa after already being in Florida for 2 weeks. It could happen. This is the NFL. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. But I tell you what, this defense continues to improve. Defense, we live in a world where defense wins championships, right? But like you said, the Rams won it offensively. So, I mean, the closer we get to being a balanced attack, that's going to make this more scary than just a one-sided threat. If you could, generate threats on both sides of the ball, it changes the game as we see it today. All right, that's going to be our time for today. I hope that sheds the light not only for everybody that watches the show of what's going on with this football team, especially defensively, But for a guy like Donkey Boy who just wants to focus on certain things to try to prove a point, there's a reason why you were an offensive tight end. Stick to it, okay? All right, guys, remember you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at The Will to Win, as well as email us any questions and concerns at thew2w@gmail.com. That is thew2w@gmail.com. Until tomorrow, I'm the Oakland Knight, he's the Raider Pirate, and you guys stay Raider strong.
Hey there, I'm Jason Smith, also known as the Oakland Knight. We'd like to thank you for watching the Will to Win broadcast here on YouTube. And if you would like to stay up to date for more content like this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. Or you could click any one of the videos on the side to watch more great videos. Thank you once again, and stay Raider strong.